Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Monster Magnet, A Better Dystopia, out May 21st on Napalm Records. This album has 13 tracks, 48 minutes in length, and this is the band's 11th full-length studio album. With a caveat, this is their first ever all-covers record. And if you don't know the band, they're a colossus of American psychedelic rock and roll. Now, as far as this record goes, I love the structure of the album. This is one of the main components of a record of this nature. You want to create an album that's fluid, that's engaging, that's well connected, that moves well from track to track, and has a sense of balance and continuity. This record offers that. From the opening monologue to the last song, you always feel that you're there with it. You feel like you're moving from song to song. You don't feel like there's abrupt changes or abrupt cuts from track to track, and the whole album feels as one, not just a compilation or just a collection of songs thrown in together. A lot of that has to do with the soundscape that the album has. While giving you perhaps different outputs, different outcomes, different feels, different atmospheres from song to song, there are some elements that stay very consistent across all 13 tracks, and those elements are enough to really create this red line across all 13 songs that allows the album to have this forward motion to it. The soundscape of the album, like I said, changes ever so slightly from song to song, and that is to be expected. That's a normal aspect of a record like this, and when you think the backdrop behind it in terms of being all covers, obviously that's going to have an impact on how these songs are going to come across. But overall, I feel like the band did a wonderful job creating an album that really feels like a Monster Magnet record as far as the overall soundscape is concerned. The fuzziness of the guitars is phenomenal. The overall sound is incredible. The changes, the morphing, the evolution from track to track, giving you different looks, different atmospheres, different perspectives, never really falls off the beaten path. It always feels like it's trying to move in one direction or another, but still staying connected from track to track. And you always get this sense that this is an album that really has a life of its own within the individuality of the songs, but they're all there to feel and to fit the purpose that the record has in store for the listener. So overall, I really like the sound, I really like the delivery, I really like how it was recorded, how it's put forward. Within that sound, I really have to tackle the drums and guitars for two very different reasons. The drums I felt were more consistent on this album in terms of what they were there for, not necessarily the sound that they provide, but more so what impact they have in the overall presence of the album. And I felt like they did a very consistent job from track to track, and it's one of those elements that allows you to feel a sense of continuity from song to song. Because on the other hand, you have the guitars, and the guitars are a lot more eclectic, a lot more diverse, pulling you in a lot of different directions. You not necessarily feel consistency coming out of the guitars as far as the output or as far as the approach is concerned. They really change from track to track. They really go in different directions, and they try to be as volatile as possible within the restraints of this record. So it's important to have this dynamic of approach between drums and guitars. One a little bit more volatile, like I said, the other one a little bit more controlled, a little bit more defined. The two work well together because they allow the record to have a life of its own within the tracks themselves. It's almost like each single song has its own DNA, has its own fingerprint, but in the same time, they're all part of a much larger picture, and they all fit together perfectly like pieces, like different pieces of a much larger puzzle. So I really like the sound of the drums, the sound of the guitars, the eclectic approach of the guitars, but perhaps more important that the individuality of approaches of those two elements is how well they combine with each other on all 13 tracks, and how well they work with one another in order to provide a substance, a very substantial approach as far as depth of sound goes. On top of all of that, you have the vocals. Incredible. That's the other motor of this record. I mean, I really consider the guitars one of the main motors of this album, but if this album was a car, it has two motors. One is the vocals and the other one is the guitars. The vocals are outstanding from top to bottom. Either be the opening monologue, a middle track, finishing song, a chorus, a verse. It doesn't really matter how you look at this record. From a vocal perspective, is really well played out, is really well recorded, really well defined. And every single track, I felt like the vocals brought something to the forefront. They match what the lyrics were all about. They match what the message was. They matched the intensity of the song. They matched a little bit of the originality of the track itself. So I like the approach, I like the results, I like how they were recorded, I like the different changes from song to song, giving me a different eyesight, if you will, as a listener. I was never really sure what I was going to get out of a track as far as the vocals were concerned. I knew it was going to be quality, I just didn't know exactly what the delivery was going to be like. So that aspect is really important. It adds to the volatility that you're getting out of the guitars. The two really match well with each other, and like I said, they are the motors of this record. Overall, this is a very interesting album, an album that I really enjoyed. And I don't think this is an album that comes across just as an all covers record. These songs are pretty obscure, and I don't think a lot of people are really familiar with them. So when you listen to this record, it really feels like a Monster Magnet album. Brand new album, you never heard this before. This is their record, and I think that's the beauty of it. I'm a fan of covers, but I'm a fan of covers done in a way that feels like originals. And these songs have that in them. I mean, they still have pieces of the original parts in there. They still have the original DNA, if you will, present throughout the whole record. But let's face the facts, this is a Monster Magnet record, and for a lot of the fans of the band, this is going to feel brand new, fresh, and exciting to listen to. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Solid Gold Hell. The fuzziness of the guitars is just outstanding on this track. I really love it. It has a very dark atmosphere to it. That atmosphere really comes to the forefront in the vocals. A song that feels very inviting at the same time. It has this dark notion to it. It has this dark blanket to it, but at the same time it brings you in. It caresses you in. Musically feels very linear. There's some bursts or outbursts, if you will, but it's a very linear track that really doesn't change too much. It stays on the road. It doesn't go off of it, and that allows the track to move freely, but to move in a very linear way from point A to point B without a lot of variations. Like I said, there are some bursts, but not a lot in order to change the eyesight of the listener. Really driven by the guitars and driven by the vocals. Those two elements, like I said earlier, there are the motors of this record, and you're going to feel them pulling this track forward, always in the same direction, with the same tempo, with the same intent. The vocal style on this track is really interesting. I really like it. It matches a little bit of the fuzziness that you're getting out of the guitars. That transports itself into the vocals, and the two allow themselves to really work well in parallel, sometimes intertwining to make that thick atmosphere that this track has and really bringing it home. Next, When the Wolves Sits. I really like this song. I like what this song has to offer. I love the guitar intro on this track. Great tempo, great guitar sound all around, really pushing the song forward. The guitars help the lyrics. It's an interesting aspect that this song has, that I felt that not only you're getting a sense of what the song is all about from a lyrical perspective in terms of how the vocals are coming at you, you're also getting that from the way the guitars sound and the way the guitar approaches the lyrics. They act almost as a booster that allows the song to come to life, or the lyrics to come to life almost at every single turn, matching what's happening in the lyrical content from a musical perspective with the way the guitars are taken throughout this song. So I love that combination of using both the vocals and guitars to tell the story, not necessarily one or the other, but both simultaneously as you progress down the line. The chorus is super catchy. Perhaps one of the catchiest, hookiest chorus on this album is on this song. I love how it comes across. It feels very strong. It feels like it's powerful. The guitars really take over the song, both in the verses and in the chorus. But once again, they have this ability to just merge really well with everything that is happening. You never necessarily feel like one is overshadowing the other. They're just really working well in parallel. The solo section is just outstanding. It feels like it goes on forever, but it just has so much power, it has so much life in it, and it really injects life into the overall perception of the track itself. It's such an important element of this song, and they did it in such a wonderful way, making it long, stretching it out, giving it life, giving it their own spin, their own take, their own fingerprint, if you will, just really elevating the song, taking it to the next level. Last but not least, Death, a real stripped down track. It really felt bare bones, just vocally driven. Most of all, that's what you're going to get out of this song. The drums play a role in this track, but they're creating just the bass line. They're really creating the foundation, allowing then the vocals to come on top of it and really dictate a little bit more of where this track is going, as far as tempo, as far as movement, as far as atmosphere, as far as the soundscape goes. The guitars are there, but the guitars are there more in a subdued role. You really feel like this is a track that really resonates well in terms of what the vocals can do and what the drums are doing. The guitars are somewhere in the middle. They're like a layer somewhere hidden within those two. They play an important role, don't get me wrong, but this is a track that when you finish the song, all you can think about it is how strong the vocals came across, how powerful they were, how magnetizing they were, because they really put you in a trance. You almost feel like you're losing yourself within the track, not because of the atmosphere that the sound is creating, but the atmosphere that the vocals are putting forward in terms of how well they represent the lyrical content. I love this track because of that nature that it has. It feels very stripped down, it feels very raw, and that rawness then gets translated with the vocals and how well they move those lyrics into a whole new level. I just love the way this song comes together. This is it, Monster Magnet, A Better Dystopia, out May 21st on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use this comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.